Welcome back. This is hour number 2. Hanging out with Leo and Adam for 2 hours, Adam?
Oh, we'll see. We're doing it. Look at us.
that.
We have a sensitive subject. Anytime we have attorneys on, Adam gets all squeamish.
He was so excited about the hurricane stuff.
I don't get squeamish around attorneys. They're fine. I do my job properly.
Yeah.
Let them sue
Let
the
me tell
insurance.
you what. The attorneys are like real estate agents, okay? Let me just say
There's
that.
a lot of them.
There's a lot of them.
Too many. No, I'm just
they are not all the same.
That is true.
The good ones are good. When you need them, you need them. And
Right.
they are worth the money you pay them.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely.
There's no disputing that. So without further ado, let's introduce one of our guests for the hour, Mr. Derek Usman. He's with Usman Law Firm. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Katrina. Yeah, it's Derek Usman. Yes, ma'am.
Welcome to the show. How you doing this morning?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Let's talk to our listeners. Tell them about yourself and your firm. How long have you guys been around? What kind of litigation do you do?
Sure. I relocated from Chicago, Illinois. I grew up in Indiana, and then I went to law school outside Chicago. Then I practiced in the city, in the Loop, for 10 years. Then I relocated to New Tampa, Wesley Chapel, and my office is right on Bruce B. Downs and County Line Road in New Tampa. And I do business litigation, employment law, and transactional law.
Transactional
Mostly
law.
I do, and I go to federal court and state court, both things.
So tell me a little bit more about transaction law. What does that mean?
Okay, transactional is contracts, non-compete agreements,
Got it.
both drafting and reviewing them.
So an agreement between one party or another, that sort of thing. Okay, that makes sense. And so what type of cases do you work with as it relates to employment law?
Okay, employment law is everything from ADA, Disabilities Act, FMLA, Family Medical Leave, overtime, and I do both management and employee side.
Okay.
And one thing I should tell you folks is that just like it's sort of common sense that you shouldn't do things yourself, but especially there's a lot of steps to all this, and folks, when they try to do it themselves, they miss deadlines because there's strict deadlines, and some things. Okay, let me give you an example. FMLA, suppose you have a FMLA medical issue.
Real quick, Derek, what's an FLMA? What's that acronym
Is
stand for?
FMLA? FLMA?
Yeah, FMLA. Yeah,
Family Medical Leave Act. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
And how many employees do you need to have to have to be in that threshold?
About 15 to 20. It depends on if you're suing in state or federal.
Is it really worth
Yeah,
suing your employer, though?
Is it 15 people? I thought it was like 40 or 50. So you're telling me it's 15 people at one location or 15 people across the whole state?
Whole world.
Oh, whole world.
All right.
Yeah. So suppose somebody in China opens up a restaurant here, and they only have 5 here, but overall, as they have 15 employees, then they could be liable under that statute.
So I've got a couple just kind of specific questions while we're on point here. You were talking about, FMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act. What does it say about like maternity leave and like paternity leave? Is there a certain amount of time that employers are supposed to give you off, or they have to give you off?
Yeah, if you qualify, you just can't start on day one and give birth the next day and expect it. But
Is there a timeline to qualify?
It's 9 months. What's that?
Is there a timeline that makes you qualify, or how do you know?
Yeah, you have to work a certain amount of hours.
Okay. Do you
So
know?
you can't just start on day 2. You can't expect to qualify.
So if you've been there for a year, would you qualify?
Yeah, something like that. Yes, ma'am.
So how long is the time?
Yeah, what's the threshold?
I'm just curious. Like for women, how long is it for maternity leave?
I like how the business owners here are all asking the
How long
FML.
is
Hey, what's the threshold, please?
Yeah, what's the threshold?
No, I'm curious because my
I have
personal
to give-
trainer just had a baby.
Depends on how many-
Not
if
him,
you're
but his
having
wife.
Twins or triplets.
One baby.
I'm kidding about that.
Yeah.
I was joking about that.
All right. So do you know what the timeline is for women and for men?
What's that?
What is the allowable timeline for women and for men?
It depends on the hours worked. That you can't be. If you work part-time, it takes longer to qualify.
Let's say it's a full-time employee, 40 hours a week. They've been there for a minimum of 1 year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you should be.
She's asking how long they get for maternity leave, or how long you have to allow them
Or paternity
or
leave.
paternity,
And paternity
And
leave.
What about all these other genders? Do they get some kind of leave?
Well, my question was just how long is
Eternity leave.
Eternity-
Eternity leave.
eternity leave.
Eternity leave. It's called being fired.
That's what's called family.
So what
Family,
kind of
if your
leave
family-
are you required to give?
You can. You are mandated that when you come back, you have to be placed in a similar position. So you can't if you're an engineer, you can't come back
As a receptionist?
or a senior engineer at a particular branch. They can't say, well, sure, we'll bring you back, but now you have to work
as a home
in
inspector?
Brandon.
Looks like you're safe,
You're safe,
as
Leo.
CEO of Beryl Engineering, Leo.
So is it 4 weeks? Is it 6 weeks? Is it 8 weeks? Is it different for men versus women?
Versus men who think they're women?
Leo, stop.
Hey, this is
My question's serious.
It's a legitimate question.
I have a serious question too.
He's an equal
I am.
opportunity
believe you,
employer.
but I wasn't
Okay,
expecting that.
he's an equal opportunity employer, Katrina.
Okay, but I still just wanted to know, if it's the same for men versus women, is it different? Like if you have the baby
It is
versus
the
you're the
same.
dad?
It is the
Yes?
It is the same.
Oh, it's the
family.
same.
Think of it family, right?
Okay.
Any family member, if you have to take care of grandma,
Is it 6 weeks or how long is it?
yeah, that's about the threshold amount.
Okay. Sounds
Awesome.
good.
Awesome.
All right. What about non-competes? I heard you mention that.
Yeah, non-competes. Those are tricky. Like,
I
let's
hear
say,
they're hard to enforce.
yeah, especially
That's what I wanted to
for
know.
licensed individuals, because I can't tell a home inspector he can't compete because if he quits, or we
Real
fire
estate
him,
agent.
that's his license.
That's their
It's-
livelihood.
yeah, it's their profession. You
So
can't-
how enforceable are non-competes for licensed individuals?
In the state of Florida.
Only if I draft them.
Oh,
That's,
okay.
Only if I do it. Otherwise, they're not enforceable.
Okay.
fair enough.
So what language are you using that makes them so enforceable?
Well, you can have somebody just sign anything you want, but is it really going to be legal and enforceable? You have to go by the statute, and you have to see what the relevant case law is and have those provisions in there. Just by saying, hey, you worked for me, and now you can't go work somewhere, doesn't matter. That's not enough. You have to have a legitimate business interest that you're trying to protect.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
it has to be something special and unique.
Well, Derek, we appreciated having you on Tampa Home Talk this morning. That music says we are wrapping up to go to a break and our next guest. We really appreciate your time. This is Tampa Home Talk. If you'd like to connect with Mr. Derek Usman, it's 813-377-2775, and we'll get you connected to Derek. That's our off-air number, 813-377-2775. Thank you for joining us, Derek.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll be back right after this break, so stick around. This is Tampa Home Talk. Again, our off-air number, 813-377-2775, 813-377-2775. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back. Yes, I had us potted down there, Leo.
Welcome home,
All of
Katrina.
our
It's
levels
welcome
are-
home.
welcome
It's Tampa Home Talk.
Welcome home.
Welcome home. We got David Green in the house.
We do.
Leo moved quicker than I think I've seen him ever move. Did you see that?
The music came on, and then we were like,
Yeah, so joining us here for hour two, we have Mr. David Green. Welcome back.
Oh, good to see
Welcome
you. Katrina.
home.
I thought you were
Welcome
coming, then you
home.
were not coming, and you're here, so
I
we're
am.
happy you're here.
Thank you
Sorry,
for
I'm-
coming to save the day.
I'm a
by
little
the way.
under the weather, but I'm going to fight through it here.
I
to
think
you
your
guys.
answers might be a little more direct.
Well, I try.
So were you
Having information that people can use is a good thing.
listening to the Hurricane Hour number one?
I didn't get to catch that, but I was
Okay.
very interested. What did I miss on Hot Hurricane?
Well, so let's just start.
Prep.
Let's introduce yourself to our
With
listeners in case they did not catch you the last time you were on the air. Your name, your business name, how long you've been in practice, and what type of law you specialize in.
Sure. My name is David Green. I'm a partner at Woods Trial Law, and we are a litigation firm who handles personal injury cases as well as construction defect and many other types of injury cases. So we work with personal injury and property damage cases. We are trial lawyers, and so our bread and butter are taking the cases that other people don't want to try, and we try those and work for our clients. And so we have a pretty good diverse group of attorneys between myself, my partner Kevin Woods, and several other associate attorneys who are all fantastic. I mainly practice in the area of construction defect law, although I do have some background in criminal defense work and some personal injury defense work.
I feel like all attorneys kind of start there, don't they? Or am I wrong? Like a lot of them do.
Yeah, I was going to say, when I started coming up through law school, I was talking to my mentors and talking about, how I wanted to be, a civil litigator, what things I could do. They told me, go work for the state, defense or prosecution, doesn't matter. Go there, work as long as you can. You'll get all the trial experience you possibly can, and then you can take that out and kind of use that. And it's absolutely true.
Well, if you did, that would be a great place actually for any attorney to start, because then you really get an idea of what kind of law that you naturally would gravitate towards, right?
Sure. I mean, the main benefit that I found was that, those organizations, public defender's office, state attorney's office, they're very structured. They got a lot of people with a lot of institutional knowledge, have been doing it forever. They can train new attorneys up. They can teach you how to act in a courtroom, how to work with judges. There's a big support system there, and then you get a ton of experience. In my usual divisions, we were in trial every other week, and then every other week was motion practice. So you're in 1 week doing just motion practice in front of the court. Next week you're doing trials, and then back and forth, nonstop.
So do you mean to tell me that some attorneys only want to settle cases? They don't want to go to
I
trial?
think it's a high percentage of attorneys,
I think
right?
most of the cases I'm involved with as an expert, I'd say all but one so far is settled.
Yeah. Well, let's be realistic though about this. If you've ever had any type of business dispute, and any good attorney will tell you it is in your best interest to settle it before you go to trial, right? Because people don't always win when they go to trial.
My sweet spot are, about 6 to 9 months into a case. We've developed all the facts. We know who our experts are going to be. We know what the case is going to say. We know what the case law is going to say. We educate the other side and tell them, here's why it's a really bad idea for you to go to trial, because I'm going to give you an offer now, and it's going to be higher than you want to pay, but it's not going to be as high as it's going to be when we go to trial. And so here's your opportunity to do the right thing, Mr.
Right.
Whoever the at-fault party is, and try and resolve your case.
Or you could have, like, I have 10 acres in Tennessee, and I had a neighbor, actually, ex-law enforcement in Miami, if you can believe that, stole timber off the property. It was in litigation for 5 years, settled it before we went to trial, and then didn't perform on the settlement. So then we had to reopen the case and take him back to court. It was a whole ordeal.
I have those issues come up too, where you have a contract, you have a settlement agreement, and one side says, I'm not going to pay.
I changed my mind.
Yeah,
Nah.
this contract, I'm not going to do that.
And what do you do? Sue them for more?
You come back.
Like, thanks
you
for
keep
wasting my
going.
time.
There's no deal.
I remember I was in a mediation a couple of weeks ago, and the mediator tactic usually involves arguing brackets. I know David's familiar with
love
brackets.
brackets, yeah.
So brackets is let's say I want 100,000, you want to pay 0, but both sides really have some numbers they're willing to play in. So the mediator will try and bracket them, saying, well, will you go as low as 70 and as high as 110? And then they'll turn to the other side. Will you go as low as 0 and come up to 30? And you keep bracketing till you get overlapping brackets to try and get that number out.
Interesting.
It's just...
Some cases
Seems
it works
very
for.
basic.
It's basic negotiation tactics saying that, hey, they both got a number they'll use. Let's see if...
What's your number?
Let's see if they're going to overlap. You can't ask what their number is. So let's
Yeah.
see if we can get a range of numbers and see if those two ranges can overlap.
You know, part of what I like to try and do is not look kind of beyond the numbers. So we've got numbers. Numbers are important. We all love the numbers. But, you know, there's lots of
Big
other
number
things.
fan right
Engineer.
there. Big
Yeah.
number fan.
But you lose sight of the bigger picture in the numbers. You know, Leo,
Right.
you can't see the forest through the trees sometimes.
That's right, Leo.
I
Yeah.
could buy a whole lot of forest with good numbers.
Unless the
Love his
seller's
thought
not willing to
process.
sell to you. And then what are you going to do?
True.
All the numbers in the world won't get it for you. So
Kind of like
sometimes,
the current housing market.
yes, so exactly. Sometimes these sellers, then the sellers say, hey, I want to sell my house, but I want it to go to a good family. Or I want to have a certain type of person own this house.
But you can't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, we talked about that. It's a
talked
HUD
about that, you
violation.
can't do
Sure,
that. HUD
but
violation.
these are conversations that we have with people who say, you know, it's not just numbers. I want somebody who's going to take care of this. I want somebody who's
Yeah.
going to appreciate this like I did, or I want somebody who is going to pay me maybe not top dollar, but come with cash instead of a contingency. You know, certain
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
market we're in right
That's
now.
the
yeah
market we're in.
material
Cash
terms.
monies.
So are you involved in any of this stuff? And what do you think about this? You know, where every contract now that's getting accepted, if it's not cash, it's conventional, and it has an appraisal waiver or an appraisal waiver up to a certain number.
I'm getting a lot of feedback from clients, especially out-of-state clients who are coming in from New York, New Jersey, California, and they're coming to this market, lots of cash in their pockets. They sold their one bedroom in San Francisco for $2.3 million.
Yeah, they can buy 12 houses here.
And they can buy a horse, you know, stable over
Yeah.
here.
So what I'm finding, and I know you might have seen this as well, it's our fastest growing inspection type now, is out-of-state buyer suing seller or suing seller's agent after they move here and discover the house isn't what they thought it was.
Yeah,
How so?
That's the danger. So,
Give me an example if the house wasn't what they thought it was.
So I was going to say, let me talk briefly about that, and let's jump into some specifics. So when you're talking about you find yourself in a position where you bought a house, it's not quite what you were expecting, and you got to figure out what can I do. There's only a couple of targets. You've got the seller, the seller's agent, possibly a lender if they did some sort of independent inspection, and possibly a original contractor or builder if you're kind of within that 10-year statute of repose. So you do have multiple people you got to look at, and that's kind of the lawyer's job to say, hey, you know, here's the people that we should be going after. Here, who's got the liability and who's got the actual money to make you whole. But did you want to talk about what you were?
Yes, here's a specific example. Out-of-state buyer buys a house. The seller's agent hired a handyman to do some light touch-up paint because you do touch-up paint. Turns out the light touch-up paint was over mold or over other water intrusion damage.
That's a big deal, though. It's
Buyer's
not
home
little.
inspector comes in, notices some brief staining. Seller doesn't read the buyer doesn't read the report. Buyer moves into the home. All the staining now comes out and shows itself, and it's got mold and all the staining. Immediately wants to turn around and sue. They had never stepped foot in the home until a week after they closed.
But all of these contracts are as is with the right to inspect. So your due diligence time period is during your home
But
inspection.
the lawyers are coming under the cover
Yeah, well,
up.
you can talk about that, but I'm like for us,
Sure.
if we have an out-of-state client and we represent that buyer, they have to sign a final walkthrough, and if they're not here, even if we're doing a video with them, they have to sign a waiver, a final walkthrough, because they are not physically here.
So what are you seeing on the...
In my first year contracts class in law school, one of my professors who wrote the restatement on contracts, which is kind of like our seminal source of material we go to, said that he doesn't like to read contracts because he can just sign his name and then argue later that he didn't actually read it and didn't know about what it said in them. So that's coming from the contracts professor saying, don't read your contracts, just sign them, and then you can figure it out later. And that's what a lot of these people do. They want the house, okay, it's just a lot of language, it's boilerplate stuff, let me sign it and move forward. But that doesn't help you because in Florida, it's really a notice requirement. So we have that Johnson v. Davis case that says when you're a seller, you have to disclose any fact that materially and substantially affects the value of a house. And so then the question that becomes to the lawyers, you know, if they disclose in their seller's disclosure form where you got to go through all that stuff, if they noted mold or water staining inside the house, they've got a very good argument to say that the buyer was on notice of potential water intrusion issues to the house and should have done something else. And so in that case, I'd more side with the seller than the buyer, because if there is notice there, that's where we get to.
But what about if the seller does a pre-listing inspection, then repairs what's in the pre-listing inspection report, so they don't want to disclose that report because they did those repairs?
This is where language matters on the addendum, and if they get too specific, we don't even write them. We send them to an attorney to draft them. I've got one closing today, same thing. Seller had a leak in the cabana bath. It flooded part of the kitchen. Mm-hmm. She removed herself the floors and stuff that did, that had the damage. And I flat out, we had an addendum prepared by an attorney because the agreement was to try to settle and not have an insurance claim so they could still close this week. And so we said, this has to be a full and final settlement. And we said, as a matter of fact, we're not comfortable with you guys even signing off on it, so you come here and do it. And they said, well, we won't be there until we're ready to sign. So they sent the home inspector, and we said, we think that's a great plan. Went back, renegotiated a couple dollars more, but I would much rather do that. Yeah. Because otherwise, that's when people get in trouble, when agents try to start writing this. And we had something similar come up with one of my agents. We'll talk about that when we come back after the break. Exactly what you're saying, Leo. This is Tampa Home Talk. Stick around. We'll give our number when we come back.
813-377-2775. That's 813-377-2775.
Sound like a used car dealer.
Text the word law to 813-377-2775 if you want to get a hold of Derek or David about all your law needs.
If you text law, we will not be answering it, but we will send you to the attorneys that know the answer to the question.
Not licensed attorneys.
I'm the one that has the fun conversations with the attorneys because I know the FAR bar so well, but I'd never proclaim to be an attorney. I just really understand the language. That's all I said.
That's right. That's the important advice I give to everybody. Stay in your professional lane.
That's right. I know the scope of the contract, and everything outside of that, we divert to you guys.
That's right. I was going to say.
In your professional.
So the point of this is, we were talking about
the way
this.
of Florida, actually.
We had a very detailed addendum prepared for this because the lenders want to see the cleanest, simplest, easiest addendum, right? Which is fine with me, but there's got to be some other language in there.
Some teeth in there,
So they wanted just to do a simple credit to seller and that's it. And we're like, no, that's not going to work. My seller's like 80, right? So I'm like, not on my watch. It's not happening. So that, and I'm easy to get along with. I have a great reputation among my peers, but I'm known for my negotiating skills and I'm known for knowing the contract. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, I'm going to stand by the seller with what the contract says. So we were reading a provision of that during the break.
Right, and notice an opportunity to look at and inspect before the deal is done is always kind of the cure-all. Did this person know what was going on? Did they go into the deal with open eyes? If so, and they knew all the facts, it's very hard to overturn that deal.
So the damages come from not
disclosing stuff.
Right?
That's where people get in trouble when they try to hide stuff.
Yeah, so we have cases that involve fraudulent misrepresentation where, if you had the water stain and you just painted over it and you didn't put anything in the seller's disclosures, that's a misrepresentation.
Well, that's what I told the buyer's agent. I said, look, no one's trying to hide anything. We told you that the cabana bath leaked. It was fixed. And instead of just replacing the floors that were damaged, which we could have done, and it would have been a slightly off match, we wanted to let you guys know about the damage and give you the option.
Right, because then the buyer can say, hey, well, maybe I just want to chip in a couple of bucks and do all the floors.
Correct.
And maybe that's the way you make the deal.
Well, it was a cheaper, older laminate. It was like 7 years old. So by today's standards, it's completely dated, And like I told them, and I meant what I said, the area that was removed was in the kitchen. This type of laminate, I would never put that laminate in my house in the kitchen. There's no way. Because any little bit of water, or moisture or pets or kids and that floor, it's going to get the bubbling on the edges. You know what I'm talking about, right? The cheap sawdust type laminate. It looks nice, but it's not it's not waterproof by any means.
It looks nice to the untrained eye.
Yeah. Yes.
That would be you staying in your professional.
So anyway, if it were me, I would put tile. I would have put tile in the kitchen. So we just wanted the buyer to have that option. Give them a credit. Let them do it after the fact. Let them know about it. And so we went back and forth because the buyer wasn't here. They're moving down from Chicago, and we're like, well, we're really not comfortable we want your buyer to see it before we agreed. And she wanted us just to sign saying we're going to give a credit without any release. And we're like, no, that obligates us to just give you money without any release.
Yeah, I mean, from the lawyer's perspective, I'm always looking at this stuff, when it blows up in everybody's face and it lands on my desk and say, okay, well, what, we've got to forensically look back through and say, here's what it is. And so on the proactive side, you want to look at this and say, okay, well, what documents do I need so that when this blows up later, I'm going to be looking okay. And
this is why you guys love me, because I always have like all my I's dotted, my T's crossed, and I think like you.
Yeah. Well, this is where the practical law side comes in. So some people just like staying with their forms and just staying, kind of in their where they're very comfortable. But in the real world, we always have problems coming up. There's always some unique situations. We kind of figure out how to navigate through that as best we can. You can never eliminate all risk, 100%. But if you can get 98% of the way there.
So we were talking about the addendums, right? And I was saying if they're too complex, we actually send them to the attorneys to write. So we had a home inspection that we did. It had some basic things. I'm trying to think what it was. And we wrote it up, the addendum, to where I'd have to pull the exact verbiage, but it said that the work was supposed to be performed by a licensed person with all receipts provided. And so there was like a clogged up bathtub, slow running sink, and like some other stuff, right? And the seller was really fighting. They're like, no, he just did Drano and did a snake. And we're like, sorry, our addendum says, so we are expecting a plumber to go have a look, give us a receipt, and kind of warranty the work.
Yeah.
And so that's going back and forth on another transaction right now. But it's, the only thing in there that really could be done by a handyman was there's a loose piece on a banister, because you would have to get a carpenter, right, to do that. And good luck in this day and age. But everything else really should be done, especially with the way our addendum was written.
Yeah, anytime you're talking about mechanical, plumbing, electrical systems, you need licensed people in there. Maybe fixing the loose knob on the banister could be a handyman type deal.
Correct, yeah.
But, especially for plumbing systems, and especially if you're going to the house and it's a new purchase.
Or plumbing drain systems.
And the wording
Drano doesn't always work. Sometimes Drano, if you do it incorrectly, can damage
Well,
pipes.
you know what I think is, oh my gosh, what if there's tree roots? What if there's like bigger issues later? This is why people get sued, because nobody thinks about that stuff. Or most agents don't think about that. So this is where I said, your agent and your attorneys matter, because your language matters and your understanding of the whole thing matters. And so I've seen some of these addendums so simple that just says literally, seller will fix the following items prior to closing. Okay, great. Well, they could go in and Drano and snake it themselves, according to the way that's written. But if it says professionally licensed trade people with receipts provided, that's very clear what the buyer's looking for.
And that's why every time, Leo and I work together sometimes, for engineering on houses, whenever my homeowners have repairs done, it's always by a licensed professional. It's always when they go to sell it with the seller's disclosures, I tell them, you staple all that stuff in there, you give them the photos, the receipts, scopes of work, everything you need to turn over to another professional, so that there's not going to be any questions about what was done, how it was done.
Well, I'll go one step further. Always, you want a licensed professional, make sure they're insured, right? Because if you mess something up,
according to Adam, don't worry about just the license, ask for the insurance too.
Ask for the insurance too, because if they mess something up, you have something to go against. If you mess it up yourself, you could be SOL depending on the situation.
Going back
we don't
to laws.
use acronyms here. Do a corner.
Spit out of luck.
Spit out of luck. Yeah. So going back to my old law school days, they taught us the 4 elements of negligence: duty, breach, causation, and damages. And then also the 5th one that nobody knows about: insurance.
Insurance.
How are you going to get paid? You get the best claim in the world, best damages in the world. If there's no coverage, no insurance, no collectability. What are you
Doesn't
gonna
matter.
Do? Doesn't matter.
It's dead judgment.
Yeah, I remember that back when I was Landlord 101. It's like, well, my tenant broke the lease. I could sue them for the $4,000 they owe, but it's like, well, they lost the lease because you kicked them out because they didn't pay you. So why are you going to spend money with
You're
your lawyer?
squeezing blood from an attorney.
Yeah, why are you going to sue them to get a judgment you can't
That's right.
enforce?
Can't sue nothing.
You can get that piece of paper and put it under your pillow and hope the collections fairy comes and puts a bunch of cash under there.
Or you get you get a settlement. And it's 17 cents a month for the rest of your life in perpetuity because they don't have the $1,000 or whatever.
I would actually like that. I would like to get in that check once a month, knowing, hey,
it's your mailbox money.
I won.
I won. Here's my 17 cents.
It could be $10. Leo's like, I won. That's all that
Oh, I
matters.
want it. Yeah, okay. All right. Well,
I'll take $10 a month for the rest of my life.
I know a
Passive
guy. His
income.
name's David
It adds
Green.
up. You get enough of those, right?
That's right. Yeah, I was going to say it's almost like royalty at that point.
Yeah, for that song I wrote back in the early 1990s.
So, are you guys seeing anything as it relates to appraisal waivers, or like what kind of stuff are you seeing from our out-of-state folks moving here?
So most of the problems I'm seeing is that they're moving into homes, moving into houses, having problems, and then they are talking to me about going after the sellers. And it's always one of these issues of, okay, this is an issue. Was it caused by the seller, or did the seller just not disclose this? Did the seller know about this? And so that's really where you have to go to when you're bringing a fraudulent misrepresentation claim, is that you have to have some notice on the prior owner. You know, did this person know that there was a defect and then they did something?
How do you prove their knowledge of it?
So there's
Leo's like, I can even.
there's
I know
the-
this. I know
I
the
know this
answer.
one. There's the art.
Yes,
of,
Mr. Camp.
There's the art of between known and should have known versus hidden and unforeseen. Those two competing theories.
So, give me an example. This is a great topic.
Tree root. Okay, give
Yeah.
us a tree root saying you can't see
Yeah,
it.
because you can't see it. You, just like home inspectors can't
Okay,
see behind
known or
walls.
should have known with tree root. Known or should have known. I don't know it's a tree root, but my toilet backs up once a month. So I have a history of calling a plumber out. That's known or should have known. Hidden for unforeseen is I don't live in the house. A last tenant was there 6 months ago, never told me about them calling plumbers out on a periodic basis, so I had no reason to suspect.
Right.
Why
and-
insurance companies don't like vacant houses.
Right.
Yes.
And so
What's
there-
an example of something that would not fall under that? Because I think about this like nonstop, like Leo, like literally, I am not looking at my gutters or on my roof or any of that stuff. So there could be whatever going on up there, and I'm never going to see it.
Let's talk about our cracking stucco, our old favorite building material here in Florida. So I mean, every building inspector will look at houses and will see some cracks and say, yeah, you know, hairline fractures and stucco, totally normal. It's Florida, it's settlement, whatever.
They're on sand, right?
Yes,
that's
all-
the old
we build on
excuse.
sand.
Build on sand.
And so, you know, does the homeowner appreciate that might be something deeper? Probably not. But, you know, if I hire somebody, Leo, to go back and you can say, well, I can see through the stucco to the casing beads. You don't even have to test that stucco to know that that's too thin. Now, that's not an owner fault. That's a construction problem, a subcontractor, contractor problem.
Well, I mean, on the flip side of that, if I look up at the window on a second floor of stucco, and I can see the frame of the window, and then I see a gap between where that frame meets the air versus where it should actually be meeting stucco, and there's a gap there that you can see it's too thin.
Right, and so in those cases, I'm talking to the clients coming in from out of state. They don't really know stucco. They know brick and siding, hardy board, stuff like that. And we say, well, maybe this really isn't a case against the prior owner because they didn't tell you about these defects, but you know this is a case against the contractor, the original builder, and the subcontractors who built this. And
How
so,
far back can you go on that against a builder?
somewhere between 10 and
So it's about
50.
10. I was going to say 10
I was going
years.
to say there's a 10-year statute of repose. So
Is that why the warranties are 210?
My guess was
210.
10.
That
Yeah.
is the worry. The warranties are too
yeah,
thin.
so you typically got to get like a 1 year on workmanship and pretty much everything on the house, 2 years on mechanical systems, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and then 10 years on structural components, load-bearing roof trusses, and exterior members and stuff like that.
See, I
is
store
good
all
data.
this knowledge, Leo. You know, you're not the only one here.
And when you're talking about construction cases, you got two more. You got statute of limitations. So if you have all these cracks and Leo comes out and says, listen,
house
the
is
contractors messed this thing up royally. And then you sit on that for 4 years and a day, and then you come to me and say, what do I do? I'm going to say, well, because I'm me, I'm going to say, yeah, we can probably do something on this. But, you know, the problem is, you know, if I have a report from Leo more than 4 years ago, the statute of limitations will say you should have acted on it before then. You knew about this, and you sat on your rights, and so now you don't get those.
How long can you sit on your rights?
You can sit on the rights up to that 4 year period.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
knew or should have known. Here's your report.
So one of the questions I have, and it's probably a great segue into the next break, is since it is such a heated market and builders are building as fast as they can, and there's this shortage of materials and supplies and all this
They're
stuff,
just swapping stuff out.
I want to know if some of those building construction claims are on the rise. And I don't know if it's too early, but we'll talk about
Yeah.
that when we come back after the break. Our off-air number is 813-377-2775. If you've got a question or you just built a home, it's a really good time to text that in. 813-377-2775. We'll be back right after this break, so stick around. Welcome back. Welcome home. June is National Homeowner Month, by the way. So if you don't already own a home, you should own a home. And you can call or text us at 813-377-2775, and we will help you out in the month of June and get you under contract.
And any month, really any month.
Any month, but June is National
Now's a great
Homeowner
time,
Month.
though, right? Get it while you still can.
Yeah, while you can actually afford it. And
Treat the
interest rates are
houses
good.
like toilet paper in like March of 2020, right?
Just
Like,
stock up on them?
yeah, just get it before there's nothing left.
It's about the inventory we're looking at right now, too. 813-377-2775.
If your home is made of toilet paper,
You
call
might
David.
wanna
Call
call
David.
Yeah, so before the break, you were asking me about all the new construction we're seeing, the boom in new construction because there's no inventory.
Yes. So I was going to ask, have you seen any of these construction claim defects like on the rise because they are building so quickly, or not quite yet?
Not quite yet. I mean, we typically track and lag the construction by a few years because
Right.
at least during that first year, the builders will be taking care of a lot of stuff for you. Everything's fitting and working relatively good. But usually we kind of come in years like 3+.
So you guys will be pretty busy around 2023.
Oh, yeah. These builders are just making inventory for my caseload in the next couple of years.
So, question
So I
for you. So
appreciate
let's say there's a plumbing issue,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's a 4-year-old house. Yeah. Okay.
What kind of plumbing issue?
That's a great question.
Water heater. Let's go with the water heater.
I wasn't gonna say water heater, but yeah, okay, we'll say water heater,
say
right?
water
Water heater backs up into the house, whatever.
TPR valve wasn't
Sure,
on right,
right?
and the water heater
exploded.
ejected through the roof.
So
Yeah, water heater exploded.
person's in that house, right? Let's say it's the second buyer, right? The second homeowner. They just think it's a plumbing issue. They call their insurance carrier. How does that work if it's truly construction? Is the insurance carrier denying, and then they go to Aaron, and then Aaron's like, actually go to David?
Yeah.
How does that
The
work?
two of you guys could play off that really well.
Yeah, well, Aaron and I do a lot of work together, and that's why we work so well together.
Thank you,
because-
Aaron, by the way, if you're listening today.
We
That's
love Aaron.
We do.
We
She
do.
gave me a good referral.
And she's got a new
too.
firm now.
I know. Well,
She
not
is
new.
the firm now.
Not
She is the
new,
firm.
but named partner. How about that?
Yes.
Yeah, so she is now, was it Danahy and Donovan?
Yes. I'm so
I
excited.
wonder what happened to Murray.
Murray,
think did he
Murray is now
retire,
Murray plus
exit?
Murray. They split.
The Murrays.
Yeah, which happens all the time with law firms.
Yeah.
You
no,
can't keep
surprise
track
there.
of it.
We're hard.
I just know every time something like this happens, we gain a client.
That's good. No, that's good. It's always
right.
good, right?
Lawyers are tough to work with, tough to live with, and tough to marry. So shout out to all the spouses of lawyers out there doing
Kind of like
yeoman's work.
firemen and cops and real estate agents.
I went through a lot of sessions about please stop cross-examining me. I'm not on the witness stand. I'm your wife, not your client. But in any case,
Now I know why my husband says, "Stop negotiating with me."
yeah, it's tough. It's tough. And my daughter, she's the worst. She's going to be a very good. She already is a very good negotiator. So I'm going to put her up to anybody. She's going to be the next Warren Buffett, I'm sure. So we were talking. Home water heater explodes, shoots through the roof.
Shoots through the roof.
So yeah, you want to call your homeowner's insurance company. That's your first call, and they will.
Absolutely. Call Adam.
Yes, right. Get your agent on
Make
the
sure,
on the phone.
Yeah, make sure you're insured first. Don't call me. Don't call me after the claim happens. Call me beforehand so the claim is handled properly. You know?
Right. So hopefully there's some coverage. They'll send out an adjuster and they'll look at it and do some investigation.
Sir, this is not a rocket ship. I don't
So
know
let
what
me,
happened.
let me
Don't
ask you a
lowball you.
relevant question. What should you be aware of or just pay attention to as it relates to the insurance company sending out an adjuster? Let's talk about that for a second.
All right. So the insurance company saying an adjuster, they're your insurance company. They should be working for you. And so that I'm using my air quotes. They should be working
Well,
for
that's
you.
why I asked the question.
And so if they're good, they're going to come out there and they're going to try to take care of you and see if they can get you a check cut out. And then if there's other areas that they need to collect money on from somebody else, they can do that down the road. So
By the way, if you have damage, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to get Leo and his group out there because they could do an inspection just so you make sure that the adjuster doesn't miss anything.
BerylRemediation.com. That's the next one,
That's
right?
the next one. Well, we are mold remediators by license.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but I would say, I think the point David was trying to get to, before we all cut him off.
I was just
Well, we all have good questions.
But the thing is,
Adding
the
to.
insurance adjuster works for the insurance company.
exactly.
They get paid. The
But
insurance
that's why I asked the
adjuster gets
question.
paid for closing claims below deductibles.
So I hear all the time about how the adjusters don't necessarily catch everything or include
Right.
everything. So that's why I'm asking,
Yeah.
what should they be looking for?
So if you have an adjuster who is not doing what they're not properly adjusting your claim, that's where you could do something like call up a public adjuster to get a new estimate done. You can call a lawyer like my friend Aaron Donovan over at Danahy
and Donovan.
I know, I got to get used to that. Or is it Donovan?
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Again.
And so, they can work against the insurance companies. And usually I come in if, for some reason, the valve was incorrect. It was a product defect. Or the contractor who put this in knew that there were problems and they did it anyways because they got a great deal on 500 of these things and just want to get them out of their warehouse. So that's where I'll come in and say, well, regardless of the actual value, here we've got issues with not only the damaged water heater, the damage to your house, the problem with the resale value of the house, since you had this big explosion, the time and expenses, maybe you got displaced from the house and you had to live somewhere else. Those are all kinds of damages that I can work on.
So is that
actually-
something? Let me go real quick, because you're smarter than me, so you'll remember. So
Non-argument
I guess
there.
ideally, you would say the insurance carrier would pay for everything, and then they'd subrogate
Correct.
and do that. Okay.
Right. In an ideal world, that's
Okay,
how
sorry.
it should
Sorry to
happen.
interrupt.
So basically, what I was going to say is I actually had one of these earlier this week in Orlando. It was a water heater. It exploded.
Ooh.
And the reason why
Exciting.
it exploded is they installed it. The water supply coming off the wall had too many bends in it, and the valve closed. So basically, it turned into a bomb.
Yeah.
And it exploded.
What kind of damage does that do to a house?
Crazy
Total.
damage.
Crazy
No, but a
damage.
lot of damage.
It's a lot of water damage because you have now an open water source going
Possible
everywhere.
fire.
Possible fire, but there was no fire here.
Probably damaged
But
the neighbor's house.
It was in the garage, so it took out the AC system and a car.
Whew.
And the car's out flood car, possibly, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Water
that's a
damage.
salvage title. I have a question about displacement. And I guess you're going to say it probably depends on the policy. But, my thought on this, and we talked about this before, remember that, if someone had, if the hot water heater blew up, they obviously probably can't live in the house for a while because there's no hot water, there's no AC, right? So that displacement insurance, do they give you a certain amount, or are they just obligated to pay the hotel bill? Because I was thinking, if that ever happened to me, what I would want to do would be to buy another property, live in it until that's done, and then rent it out after I move out. But they technically think in terms of
Yeah.
hotel.
They're not going to buy
room.
you a house.
No. I
If
wouldn't
that's
ask
what
them
you're
to. I'm
asking.
just saying, if the allocation for the displacement insurance is $800 a week, or I don't even know what a real number is. Is that a real number? Okay, so it's $800 a week.
Depends.
Can they just give me? Can I tell them what a hotel would be, and they have to give me that money? And do I
Yeah.
get it before or later?
Yeah, they could credit you. You could work out a deal and say, hey, I could buy a hotel for $800 a week, or I want to buy a house, and you just give me the credit that you'd be spending anyways on the hotel.
Yeah.
They could work with you on that.
And then
Man,
also,
this was a fun show.
also loss of rents in case you
Three-quarters
just own
of
the
one.
house and it's
That's right.
Yeah. All right, 813-377-2775. If you have any questions, David Green in the house, as sharp as a tack, he will answer them.
Lightning quick.
Love where you live, or we'll fix it. Welcome home.
Or my mommy will fix it.